Welcome to Book Huddle. I'm your host, Karen Reeder. Today, our guest is R.M. Romero. She is the author of 6 books. And last fall, Tale of the Flying Forest came out, and I just loved it. I am so excited to talk to her about it. But first, I want to give R.M. just a minute to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, in addition to being an author, please.
Hi, I am R.M. Romero. I am an international best-selling and award-winning author. I'm the author of 6 books: The Dollmaker of Krakow, The Ghost of Rose Hill, A Warning About Swans, Death's Country, Tale of the Flying Forest, and the upcoming The Tear Collector. I live in Miami Beach with my cat, Robin Goodfellow, and I spend my summers in Poland restoring Jewish cemeteries.
That is so cool. How did you get into restoring Jewish cemeteries?
A very fortuitous Google search when
Okay.
I was doing some research about my debut, The Dollmaker of Krakow, which of
Right.
course takes place in Krakow, Poland, and deals with World War II. I was fact checking, and a website for an organization called the Matseva Foundation came up, and I clicked on it, and I was like, "What is this?" And it turned out it was a group of Baptist Christians who were going to Poland to maintain Jewish cemeteries. And I thought, this is the strangest combination of things that I have seen in a while. But then I was looking at their website and I saw that they were working with Dr. Carolyn Sturdy Coles, who is a world renowned forensic Holocaust archaeologist. I'd actually watched a documentary that I think it was the National Geographic channel made about her non invasive excavation of Treblinka.
Okay.
And I thought, well, they must be legit if this person is working with
Right.
them. I was already planning to go back to Krakow. I'd been there once
Yes.
to get like a better feel of the city. I'd already sold the book. I really wanted it to be accurate. I thought I'll extend my trip a week. I'll do the cemetery project with them. And if I hate it, I never have to do it again. And 9 years later, I'm still doing it. So
Every
obviously, I
summer.
did not hate it.
Oh, I love that so much. And I think maybe I'm wrong, but the doll maker, I hope I can say Krakow.
Yeah, Krakow.
Krakow. I feel like that's what you're most known for. That's been on my to read list for quite a while. Do you feel like that's one of your most known books?
It is, it's been translated into I think 13 or 14
Yeah.
languages. I actually did a little book tour in Krakow, Poland with the
Nice.
Library of Krakow talking to Polish school kids about it. That was really exciting.
That's awesome. Yes, I've had that one recommend. It's been on my to read list, and there's just always so much on my to read list, but that's the one that I've been most familiar with you. And so Tale of the Flying Forest was the first one I've read, and it excites me. I love religion. I really do. And I love that it's just so woven in so beautifully in fantasy, because fantasy is also just my favorite genre. This is my jam. So tell me about, did you decide you were going to pair these two together right away, or did it kind of just gradually come together? How did pairing fantasy with religion come together?
It was always there, but it was very much kind of a small grain that the more I revised, the more I brought out. Like Anne was always Jewish
Yes.
and she was always, you know, being herself and being Jewish. But then I decided to weave in things like the music and the
Yeah.
prayers. I was having trouble coming up with a magic system. And my best friend was like, well, what about music? Since
Yeah.
Jewish services have so much to do with singing and music. I was like, oh, that's a really good idea.
Oh, yes, I love it. I thought it was just beautiful. I love one of my favorite fantasy books is Mistwick School for Musicraft, which is all about the music making the magic. So that resonated with me well. I love all the music. And I love that it was so natural for her. She was just, when she would be talking to these magical creatures, which she was not, she's from our world, right? Just or is it our world that she's from?
I always assumed it was, or like a
A
world that was very
world.
close to ours.
Okay, that's what I felt like. It was a world like ours in any event. I was trying to figure out if it was supposed to be a real city. Um, but she goes to a fantasy world, and it's just so natural for her too when she's talking to these magical creatures that she's just like, well, in my prayers, in these songs, it just came out very natural for her. It was her living her life. And I think that's my favorite part about it. It was just like her walking along, just talking about what was her and her, I don't know, is a part of her and her mom and just what she loves.
Yeah, that was really what I was going for, that it was just such an integrated part of her and her worldview that this is kind of the lens that she views even this fantastical
Yes.
flying forest through. And she recognizes that the stories in this world are so similar to the stories in her world.
Yes, it's just beautiful. Beautiful and fun. And so even if somebody never has any experience, because I've got a limited knowledge of Jewish religion, and even if somebody has nothing, no knowledge about that, and they're like, well, I'm a kid that has not grown up Jewish, I don't know anything about that, they could still read this book and just love experiencing the fantasy of it. They don't need to have necessarily a connection. And so I love that as well, that it's something that can be personal and fun for the reader, or it can just be, hey, I'm reading a great fantasy book and maybe learning a little bit about somebody and understanding about their Jewish, what's important to them as well.
Thank
Customs.
you.
Yeah. So tell me though, the flying forest. Tell me, where does that come from?
So the whole idea of Bei Eli, the flying forest, there in the Talmud, there's a line about there being this enchanted forest called Bei Eli, and it's full of magical creatures, but there was never any other mention of it. It was just this offhand, like, this exists, but there is no further explanation. It is never brought up again. So I got curious. I was like, oh, well, what would a magical forest look like? And I just came up with the idea that it was constantly on the move. And then I populated it with creatures that are mostly from German folklore,
Okay,
actually.
yeah. They do sound German, the names. So are any of the creatures something of your own making, or like the snake cats, are they all like German folklore?
It's all German folklore. I wanted to draw from that like connection that Jews have to the diaspora to Germany, and also to kind of deconstruct some of the more anti-Semitic elements that are in certain fairy tales. I was like,
Right.
no, I love those stories as kids. I am reclaiming them now and just
Nice.
taking off that part of it.
I love that. I am reclaiming this now. I am making, and I feel like, yes, that's something as a reader and as an author, that's when I read a book, I feel like to some extent it's something that it becomes a part of me. And I love to hear that as the author that you're like, yes, what I've read, I'm reclaiming this. This is a part of me and what I'm sharing with others to help them have it be a part of them now. I love it. So, what about the witches? Are there the Seven Witches, is that based in something, or was that just a fun little story you came up with?
That was a fun little story that I came up with. They're all based on either trees or flowers. And yeah, I was just kind of taking apart this idea that is sometimes in these old German stories that sort of frame the evil child eating witch as a Jew. And I was like, no, I'm going to dismantle that narrative where
Yeah.
some of the witches are good because some people are good, and one of the witches is bad because some people are bad.
Yeah. And I like that it goes into like what leads a person down that path. That will make some great discussion questions for classrooms and things, or families and homes. Like what leads somebody to do this and become who they are. So that's really fun. All right, so I love that the religion and everything that we were talking about. Do you feel like there's any of yourself in Anne or the other characters or any family members? Because you're Jewish as well, yes.
I think there's more of my adult self in Anne
Okay.
than my child self, because
Okay.
as a kid, I was very shy. I was very quiet.
Which Anne is not, yes.
Exactly. She speaks her mind. So more of my adult self, although there are characters who are based on my friends. Rainer is based on my best friend. The Jacaranda Witch and Airlise are based on two friends as well. So is the Rose Witch. It was my like little tribute to
Oh,
them.
that's so fun. That's fun. I'd love to talk to them and hear their son reading themselves in a book. That's cool. I would love to have an author friend write me into a book. That's going to be my new goal. Get
A
me, base me in a book.
little bit of immortality.
Yes, right? So fun there. So tell me about going on with the story. What brought you down the path of it's so much about finding her brother and family is so important. So was that initially that you were like, okay, we've got to separate these twins? Were you working in the fantastical part? Tell me about the creation here.
This story really came about during the initial COVID-19 lockdown. Uh, I was working at a cat cafe and
Okay.
we all got
Cat
sent home.
Cafe.
Yeah, yeah. It was a great job. And yeah, we all got sent home on March 13th. And of course, it's a small business. My
Yes.
boss couldn't afford to pay us when it wasn't open.
Right.
But thankfully, I was certified to teach English as a foreign language. So I started to do that online since
Okay.
everyone was at home and there is a high demand for English teachers. So between students, because sometimes I'd have like 10 minutes, but I had to basically be parked in front of my computer. I was like, all right, I am stuck in a 600 square foot apartment on an island and I would kill to go on an adventure right now.
Yeah.
So that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to invent this grand adventure where this girl gets to run around outside in ways that I currently cannot.
Oh,
And
I love
that
that so much. Do what you can't in the story in your head.
yeah,
You get
like
to
I
keep
wanted
it.
to bring that. And then I started thinking about just, the stories that brought me a lot of joy when I was a kid. And specifically, I drew from Hansel and Gretel, which is all about siblings saving one another,
Yeah.
and the Snow Queen, because those were my absolute favorites when I was a kid. So
Oh,
this is somewhat of a very loose retelling of both of those things.
right. Oh, I love how many elements we're discovering here. We have the Jewish songs and all of that. And then I'm not familiar with a lot of the German ones, what you were talking about, that the child eater was perceived as a Jew. Tell me, what story is that from?
There's a lot of Hansel and Gretel. It's actually
Oh,
weirdly enough the illustrations are much more anti-Semitic than the
oh,
actual text. Like in the actual
okay.
text, there's nothing that implies that
So it's
this.
that's the witch that we were talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And
Okay.
then you look at what even like modern, which is like the original Wicked Witch of the West, is very much, at least in the 1939 film, looks like an anti-Semitic character. You've got the hooked nose, and the very sharp features.
Oh, interesting. This is so much that I didn't know about. So I love, again, you reclaiming that and taking things that you loved and making it your own and bringing culture and religion into it. Beautiful. So much fun. What what do you hope that a reader takes away from it?
I really want them to take away that they have a lot of strength inside of them. Sometimes the right situation is just needed to draw it out because Anne is, when Anne starts out, she's very confused. She's not sure what to do. She's very distraught over the death of her mother. Sometimes that comes out in ways that are not fantastic, like punching a boy in the face.
Yes.
And she learns to take those feelings and do something really positive with them.
Yes. So beautiful. Well, I love that you give that power to the reader. Thank you. Can you share with us what you're working on right now? You've got the tier collector, yes, coming out?
Yes, that comes out on October 14th, also with Little Brown Books for Young Readers. And that is a climate change story about two siblings who survive this apocalyptic weather event. Basically, the entire world floods, and they wind up on the island, which, as far as they know, is the only piece of land that survived this event. And
Mhm.
they are taken in by this eccentric doctor, but then their neighbors start slowly turning into monsters when their grief about this lost world becomes too much. Then things are completely upended when a girl their own age crash lands on the island in a plane and claims that there's still people out there and the
Yeah.
world isn't entirely lost. And they have to figure out what is going on, how to cure this illness that is turning people into monsters, and really what it means to be a monster.
Wow. Oh, I love that last line, what it means to be a monster. Beautiful. All
Being
right.
pitched as a series of unfortunate events meets shipbreaker.
Oh, fun, fun. Oh, and I love that. Thinking about it when I was looking over just all of your websites and reading about you before I got on today. What is the line you use that you compare it to Narnia, your Tale of the Flying Forest?
Oh, Jewish Narnia. That was the
Jewish
other
Narnia.
thing that I just loved as a child. I always would check my closet for Narnia.
Is it there yet?
Yeah, exactly.
It
Until I
could
was
be
like
any
11. And
day.
yeah, it's like maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, like, then I wanted to bring a Jewish element to it since, Narnia is so Christian, although that
Yeah.
allegory completely went over my head until the last battle. And then I was like, wait.
Yes. Yes. I think so many. And that's where people could, because so many people read Narnia, so especially because just, they don't get through the whole 7 books.
Mhm.
And they just love Narnia, and the Christian elements do just doesn't matter. You can just love it and have nothing
Mhm.
to do with Christianity, right? And similarly, you could sit there and break apart Tale of the Flying Forest and all of the beauty and the language and the prayers and the song, or you could just enjoy a fantastical story and not realize what, I don't know. It's a little more. It's more there, but you know what I mean, is that it doesn't need to be for the child that is reading it. They can just, because so many children enjoy fantasy. That's so fun. Are you able to tell us the title of what's coming out next year or a little bit about what that's about?
Let's see, in 2027, so it's a bit of a wait.
Okay.
I have another World War II adjacent book. It's called The Mermaid of Warsaw. And it is a historical fantasy that takes place during the Warsaw Uprising of 1944. About Warsaw has this legend that its protector is a mermaid. And when
Oh,
in Warsaw and I walked into the main square, I saw a statue of her, and she has a sword and a shield. She is not Disney's Little Mermaid.
yeah.
And I thought to myself, okay, what was she doing during the uprising when the entire
Yeah, yeah.
city of Warsaw rose up to fight the Nazis and to try to throw
Mhm.
them out? So this story is my answer to that.
Oh wow. That's so fun. I have recently discovered how much I love, and I didn't know that was the term for it, historical fantasy, because I those are probably my two favorite is historical fiction and then fantasy, and to mix these together. So that's so fun. I can't wait to read it. Can you share with us a favorite children's book that either as an adult or as a child, something that you have loved?
As an adult, I really love the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. It was very much a deconstruction of all these other chosen one narratives. The world is so vibrant. I love that the main character is a somewhat grumpy girl rather than a plucky heroine.
That's right. Yes, Morgan.
Yep.
Oh, I love it. I have loved it. And I listened to the audio on that, and that's one of those books. I listened to your audio as well. It was very, very well done for Tale of the Flying Forest. Um, but Jupiter. Have you listened to the audio? Jupiter's
Yes.
voice is just like so like spot on. And now I can't think of the cat's name. And but yeah, just the audio makes it so fun too. I have a couple of the books here.
Oh, yeah. The next one's coming out in, I think, June. So I'm very excited for that.
I am so excited. I love those. Those are such a fun fantasy. And yeah, the unique characters and yeah, Morgan's fun and her friend cracks me up. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, RM, to talk to us today. And we just can't wait to hear that your tier collector sounds so fantastic, but especially that mermaid one. I did not realize that about a mermaid in Warsaw. That's so fun. We'll look forward to seeing those.
I look forward to sharing them both.